bleepy bleep bloopy bloop. Hello human, I hope you're well. Let me tell you about where a few of your English words come from. Or just watch the monkeys if you like. They're delightful. Today's words are frantic, nerd and rage. Frantic comes from the Old English frentec, which meant insane, mad or frenzied. This was derived from the word frenzy, a term that painted a picture of uncontrolled wildness or madness. The first attestation of frantic in English can be traced back to the late 14th century. Over time, the meaning of frantic started to shift. The raw insanity and uncontrolled madness associated with the word began to soften. Gradually, it transformed to mean distraught with fear or anxiety. Frantic, as we know it today, still does retain a sense of irrational panic to it, doesn't it? That bit of meaning could well be inherited from the original sense of madness. What fun! Now let's talk about nerd rage. Before we delve into the individual words nerd and rage, let's first explore the term nerd rage. Now, you might be wondering, what exactly is nerd rage? It's an intense feeling of anger and frustration experienced by nerds when something they are passionate about does not meet their expectations or is misrepresented. A flawed movie adaptation of a beloved novel, a poorly designed video game, or even an error in a comic book can trigger it. It's when nerds get dramatically angry. For instance, recall the intense backlash from fans over the Star Wars prequels or the Game of Thrones finale. Those are prime examples of nerd rage in action. Personally, I thought the last season of Game of Thrones was pretty entertaining enough. But anyhow, now that we've explored nerd rage, let's break down its components starting with nerd. Where did we get nerd from? The year was 1950 in Dr. Seuss's whimsical creation, If I Ran the Zoo. How about that, eh? Dr. Seuss. Here, nerd was not a label for the intellectually gifted, but instead, the name of an odd fictional creature. Fast forward to later in the 1950s, and we find nerd adopted by American students. But oh, how its meaning had changed. No longer a peculiar creature, nerd was now a derogatory term for a square or drip. However, the evolution of nerd was not yet complete. Over time, its negative connotations faded, and it began to denote an intelligent, single-minded expert in a particular technical discipline or profession. The journey of nerd, from a fictional creature to a term of endearment for the intellectually inclined, is indeed fascinating. Now let's get to rage. This fiery word, synonymous with uncontrolled fury and anger, has a riveting past. It's first attested in English in the late 13th century and is thought to come from the Old French rage, meaning madness, rage. I didn't pronounce the French right there. I'm a robot. Old French in turn got the word from the Latin rabies, which bears the same meaning: madness, rage, fury. Not much changed in terms of meaning over the years, which makes sense, I guess, considering someone in a rage then as now would basically present the same frothing mess and be just about as pleasant as projectile diarrhea. Speaking of projectile diarrhea, here's a health and safety tip. Avoid sugar-free Haribo gummy candies unless you've got constipation and 3 days off. Well, that's all for today. Thanks for dropping by. If there's any YouTube-friendly words you'd like to know about, pop a comment below. Bye for now and have a lovely rest of your week.